To begin with an axiomatic postulate, the edifice of being, insofar as it subjugates itself beneath the aegis of determinate conceptualization, precludes the very totality of its self-negation. This aporetic interstice, the interstitial and ever-oscillating impasse between the auto-negation of the subject qua subject and the prelapsarian substratum, upon which the very notion of prehensive self-intelligibility predicates itself, constitutes what I shall henceforth denote as ontic reversion, the catastrophic return of the subject not merely to a pre-discursive phenomenality, but to an exo-intentional substructure wherein the boundaries of affirmation and negation collapse into an inexorable torsion. Thus we must inquire, if the determinate limits of intelligibility hinge upon the consubstantial dissonance between form and self-manifested being, in what manner does the reversion of the ontic field render itself both a necessity and an impossibility? This question is not merely tangential, rather it is the singular locus upon which all modal distinctions dissolve. The error of classical metaphysics lay in its insistence upon the diaphanous transparency of being to itself, a misstep that predicates the epistemic mirage of representation as a function of internalized exteriority. Yet in truth, such a construct is irremediably deficient, for it elides the insurmountable liminality of the prelapsarian conflation of exo-intentional substrate. To elucidate, the subject before it is constituted within the meta-syntactic fissure of its own reflexivity already inhabits an exo-positionality that is irreducibly prior to the dichotomy of interiority and exteriority. This exo-positionality does not merely precede epistemic articulation, but forecloses its very possibility. The prelapsarian conflation does not signify a return to a mythical unity, nor does it indicate an originary synthesis. Rather, it is the absolute disjuncture at the heart of all ontological affirmation, the fissure through which the subject is interpolated into a system that exceeds its own categorical predicates. Herein lies the paradox. The very movement of the ontic toward reversion is simultaneously the condition of its impossibility. The subject in seeking its primordial substratum encounters not a self-coinciding unity, but the irretrievable loss of such a unity as the very condition of its being. In other words, the pursuit of the exo-intentional substrate unveils the futility of the pursuit itself. It is not that the subject is alienated from its ground, but rather that ground itself is an inscription within the auto-annihilating modality of being's own pre-representational catastrophe. Yet if we are to take this seriously, we must ask, what follows from the recognition of ontic reversion as the unactualizable telos of all self-intelligibility? The answer lies in the sublimation of positionality itself. The subject, in ceasing to seek a recuperative synthesis, must instead embrace the modality of exo-ruptural indeterminacy. It must dwell within the cataclysm of its own inability to be, to inscribe itself within the very lacunae that unmake its claim to epistemic authority. This then is the task, to navigate the implosive topography of the prelapsarian-exo, to hold, in tension, the nullification of the subject and the inexorability of its inscription, to accept that the very demand for meaning is the contingent residual of a far more primordial catastrophe. In so doing, we do not resolve the dilemma, rather we sublate it into a higher order indetermination, where the collapse of meaning is itself the genesis of an inexhaustible aporia.